The fluorescent lights of Metropolitan General Hospital buzzed overhead as Claire Morrison stripped off her latex gloves. Her scrubs were speckled with blood that wasn't hers, a testament to the 12-hour shift that had finally ended. 2:47 in the morning. She rolled her shoulders, feeling the familiar ache settle into her muscles. The emergency room had been chaos tonight. 3 car accidents, 2 stabbings, 1 heart attack. All of them saved, all of them going home eventually. Her sneakers squeaked against the linoleum as she made her way through the sterile corridors toward the staff locker room. The hospital at this hour always felt different, quieter, like the building itself was exhaling after holding its breath all day. Claire changed quickly, pulling on jeans and a worn sweater. Her auburn hair fell from its messy bun as she yanked out the elastic, shaking her head to let the strands settle around her shoulders. In the small mirror mounted inside her locker, she caught sight of her reflection. Green eyes stared back, rimmed with exhaustion. 28 years old, and she already had permanent worry lines. She grabbed her bag and headed out, nodding to the night security guard as she pushed through the main entrance. The October air hit her face, cold and sharp. Her breath formed small clouds as she walked across the mostly empty parking lot toward the garage. The parking garage was 4 levels of concrete and shadow. Her car was on the 2nd level, tucked into a corner spot she'd claimed 3 years ago when she started working here. The elevator was broken again, so she took the stairs. Her footsteps echoed. Halfway across the 2nd level, she heard something, a sound that didn't belong, a wet, ragged breathing that made her stop mid-stride. Claire turned slowly. Near the dumpsters at the far end, barely visible in the dim light, was a man. He was slumped against the concrete wall, one hand pressed against his abdomen. Even from this distance, she could see the dark stains spreading across his white shirt. Every instinct she'd honed over 5 years of trauma nursing kicked in. She ran. As she got closer, details emerged. Expensive suit, now ruined. Black hair matted with sweat. A face that might have been handsome if it wasn't twisted in pain. He couldn't have been more than 35. 2 wounds, one in the shoulder, one in the abdomen. The abdominal wound was worse, blood seeping between his fingers despite the pressure he was applying. "Sir, can you hear me?" Claire dropped to her knees beside him, her hands already moving to assess the damage. His eyes opened, dark brown, almost black. They focused on her with difficulty. "Don't." His voice was rough, barely a whisper. "Don't. Call anyone. You need an ambulance. You need surgery." "No." His hand shot out, gripping her wrist with surprising strength. "They'll find me. They'll kill her first." Claire's mind raced. She should call 911. She should get hospital security. She should do a dozen things that made sense. But something in his eyes stopped her. "Kill who?" she asked. "Have to find her first." His words were slurring now, consciousness slipping. "Please, no police. They'll..." He passed out. Claire sat back on her heels, staring at this stranger bleeding out in a hospital parking garage. She looked around. No one else. No cameras in this particular corner, she knew that much. The hospital had been meaning to install them for months. This man was going to die if she didn't help him. But helping him meant getting involved in something dangerous, something that screamed of violence and criminals and everything she'd learned to avoid after her brother's death. Tyler's face flashed through her mind. 19 years old, caught in gang crossfire, bleeding out on a street corner while people walked by. No one had stopped to help him. Claire made her decision. She ran back to the stairwell, down to the 1st level where she'd parked that morning for a supply run. Her old Honda was right where she'd left it. She drove it up to the 2nd level, parking as close to the man as possible. Getting him into the car was harder than anything she'd done all shift. He was easily 6'2", solid muscle under that expensive suit, dead weight. She used techniques she'd learned moving patients, leveraging her body, ignoring the screaming protests from her shoulders. Finally, he was sprawled across her back seat. Claire drove out of the garage, nodding again to security. Just another nurse heading home after a long shift. Nothing unusual. Her apartment was 15 minutes away. At every red light, she checked the rearview mirror. He was still breathing, shallow but consistent. She needed to stop the bleeding before he went into hypovolemic shock. Her apartment building was a modest four-story structure in a quiet neighborhood. She parked in the underground garage, grateful for once that it was always deserted at this hour. Getting him upstairs was even harder. The elevator ride felt like an eternity. She half-carried, half-dragged him down the hallway to her door, praying none of her neighbors would pick this moment to have insomnia. Inside, she maneuvered him onto her couch. The beige fabric would be ruined, but that was the least of her concerns. Claire's hands moved on autopilot. She kept a well-stocked first aid kit, better than most people's. Scissors cut away his shirt. The shoulder wound was through and through, clean. The abdominal wound was worse, but the bullet hadn't hit anything immediately vital based on the location. Lucky. She worked for an hour, cleaning, packing, bandaging, starting an IV line from supplies she probably shouldn't have at home, but did anyway, administering antibiotics, monitoring his vitals. When she finally sat back, her hands were shaking. What had she done? Claire stood, pacing her small living room. Her apartment was modest. 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom, a combined living area and kitchen. Medical textbooks lined one shelf. Photos covered another wall. Her and Tyler as kids. Her and Nina, her niece, at the park last summer. A simple life, a safe life. And now there was a bleeding stranger on her couch. She needed to know who he was. Claire carefully searched his pockets. No wallet, no phone, nothing, except a gun that made her hands freeze, and a single photo. The photo showed a little girl, maybe 7 years old, dark hair pulled into pigtails, a smile that showed a missing front tooth. She was holding an ice cream cone, laughing at whoever was taking the picture. Claire stared at the image. The man groaned. She looked up to find his eyes open, focused on her with an intensity that made her step back. His gaze dropped to the gun in her hand, then to the photo. "Don't," he whispered. Then his eyes rolled back and he was unconscious again. Claire stood in her living room at 3:30 in the morning, holding a gun and a photo of a little girl with a dying man on her couch. Her world had just changed. She just didn't know how much yet. Morning light filtered through the blinds when Claire opened her eyes. She'd fallen asleep in the armchair, her body folded at an awkward angle that made her neck scream in protest. 6:13, according to the clock on the wall. She sat up quickly, her gaze snapping to the couch. The man was still there, chest rising and falling in steady rhythm, better than last night. The IV bag she'd hung from her floor lamp was half empty. Claire stood, every muscle protesting. She needed to call the hospital, tell them she was sick. The thought made her stomach turn. In 2 years, she'd never called in, not once. She picked up her phone and dialed. "Metropolitan General, this is Sandra. Hey, it's Claire Morrison. I'm not going to make it in today. I think I have the flu." The lie tasted bitter. "You? Sick? Are you sure you're not dead?" Sandra's laugh was kind. "Seriously, though, you okay? Just need a day, maybe 2. Take care of yourself, honey. We'll manage." Claire ended the call and stared at her phone. What was she doing? She should call the police, explain everything, let them handle it. "Don't trust the police." His words echoed in her mind. A groan from the couch made her turn. The man's eyes were open, and unlike last night, they were alert, sharp. He tried to sit up, winced, then his hand moved to his side where his gun should have been. "Looking for this?" Claire held up the weapon, keeping it pointed at the floor. "I'm not going to shoot you, but I'm not giving it back either." His jaw clenched. "Where am I?" "My apartment. I found you bleeding out in the hospital parking garage last night." She set the gun on the kitchen counter, well out of his reach. "You have 2 gunshot wounds. The shoulder will heal fine. The abdominal wound needs monitoring, but I think you'll survive." He studied her, his gaze moving from her face to her surroundings, cataloging everything. "You're a nurse, trauma nurse, and you're going to tell me who you are and why I shouldn't call the police right now." Michael Grant. The name came too quickly, too smoothly. A lie. Try again. Something flickered in his eyes. Surprise, maybe. "You don't want to know who I really am. I pulled 2 bullets out of you and committed about 6 felonies getting you here. I think I've earned the truth." He was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was different, less defensive. "You probably saved my life. That's what I do, save lives, even stupid ones who get shot and refuse hospitals." Claire crossed her arms. The truth, now. Michael Grant. I own several businesses in the city. Import, export. Some people don't like competition. It was still a lie, but closer to truth. She could see it in the way he held himself. Fine, keep your secrets for now, but you're not leaving until those wounds are stable. And if you try anything, I have neighbors who will hear me scream. I won't hurt you. He said it with certainty, like a promise he actually meant. Claire spent the next 2 hours checking his vitals, changing bandages, adjusting his IV. He watched her work with an intensity that should have made her uncomfortable, but somehow didn't. "You live alone?" he asked as she replaced the antibiotic drip. "That's none of your business." "The photos. There's a little girl. Your daughter?" Claire's hands stilled. "My niece, Nina. She's 8. She lives with you?" "Her parents died 3 years ago. Car accident." The lie came automatically. Not a car accident. Tyler shot in the street. His wife, Emma, dying of an overdose 6 months later, unable to cope. But strangers didn't need those details. "I'm sorry." The words sounded genuine. Claire met his eyes and saw something there that surprised her. Understanding. Grief that mirrored her own. "The little girl in the photo," Claire said. "Who is she?" His entire body tensed. "Someone I'm trying to protect." "From whoever shot you?" "From a lot of things." Over the next 2 days, they fell into a strange rhythm. Claire monitored his recovery, grateful that infection hadn't set in. He slept most of the first day. By the second, he was able to sit up, to eat the soup she made, to move carefully around her small apartment. She learned things about him in fragments. He was left-handed. He spoke 3 languages, judging by the sleep talk she'd heard. He was educated, his vocabulary too refined for a simple businessman. And he was dangerous, even wounded. She saw it in the way he moved, always aware of exits, of angles, of threats. Nina came home from school on the second day. Claire heard the key in the lock, and her heart stopped. She'd been so focused on her mysterious patient that she'd lost track of time. The door opened, and Nina bounded in, blonde braids flying, backpack bouncing on her shoulders. "Aunt Claire, guess what happened at—" She stopped, her green eyes going wide as she spotted the man on the couch. Victor, as Claire had started thinking of him, despite the fake name, immediately shifted. His entire demeanor changed. The dangerous edge vanished, replaced by something gentle, careful. "Hi there," he said softly. Nina looked at Claire. "Who's that?" Claire knelt down to her niece's level. "This is a friend. He got hurt, and I'm helping him feel better. Is that okay?" "What happened?" Nina's natural curiosity kicked in. She'd grown up around medical talk. "I had an accident," Victor said. "Your aunt is a very good nurse." "She's the best nurse." Nina's smile was pure pride. "She saves people all the time." "I believe that." Something in his voice made Claire look at him. He was watching Nina with an expression she couldn't quite read. Longing, maybe. Or pain. "Can I get a snack?" Nina asked. "Sure, sweetie. Then homework, okay?" Nina ran to the kitchen, already chattering about her day. Claire caught Victor's eye. He gave a small nod, understanding the unspoken message. Be careful around her. That evening, after Nina was asleep in her room, Claire sat across from Victor in the dimly lit living room. "You're good with kids," she observed. "I try to be." "The girl in the photo. What's her name?" He was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. "Lily." "And someone wants to hurt her." "Yes." "Because of your business?" His laugh was bitter. "Something like that." Claire stood, walking to the window. Outside, the street was quiet, normal. Everything in her life had been normal until 2 nights ago. She turned on the TV, needing noise, needing distraction. The news was on. A reporter stood outside a downtown building, yellow police tape visible behind her. "The search continues for businessman Victor Kane, who disappeared 3 days ago after what police are calling an apparent assassination attempt. Kane, who owns numerous properties throughout the city, has been under investigation for—" Claire's blood went cold. The screen showed a photo. Professional, taken at some charity event probably. Expensive suit, confident smile. The same face, currently sitting on her couch. She turned slowly. Victor, or Kane, or whoever he really was watching her. Not the TV. Her. Waiting for her reaction. "So," Claire's voice was remarkably steady, "Michael Grant." I can explain. You're Victor Kane, the Victor Kane, Mafia boss, crime lord, the man half the city's police force has been trying to catch for years. Yes, the simple admission was somehow worse than a lie would have been. A knock at the door made them both freeze. Claire's heart hammered. She looked through the peephole. Detective James Cooper stood in the hallway, his badge visible on his belt. She looked back at Victor. He'd already moved off the couch despite his injuries, positioning himself out of sight of the door. The knock came again. Claire took a breath and opened the door, keeping it partially closed with her body. "Can I help you?" Detective Cooper smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Miss Morrison, I'm Detective Cooper. Sorry to bother you so late. I'm investigating some suspicious activity reported in this building a few nights ago. Mind if I ask you a few questions?" Claire kept the door angled so Cooper couldn't see past her into the apartment. Her pulse thundered in her ears, but she forced her expression to stay neutral. "Suspicious activity?" she repeated. "What kind?" "Someone reported seeing a person being helped into the building 3 nights ago, around 3 in the morning. You work night shifts at Metropolitan General, correct?" "I do, but I didn't see anything unusual." The lie came easier this time. "I got home around 3:30 and went straight to bed." Cooper's blue eyes studied her face. He was in his early 40s, weathered skin and graying hair that spoke of too many years on the force. "You sure about that? The witness said it looked like someone might have been injured." "Detective, I see injured people all day. If I'd noticed someone who needed help, I would have called it in." "Of course." He smiled again, and again it was cold. "Mind if I come in? Just a quick look around?" "Actually, I do mind. My niece is sleeping, and unless you have a warrant, I'd like to keep it that way." Something flickered across his face. Respect, maybe, or increased suspicion. "Fair enough, but if you remember anything, or if you see anything unusual, give me a call. We're very interested in finding whoever was brought into this building that night." "I'll keep that in mind." Cooper's gaze moved past her, trying to see into the apartment. Claire shifted slightly, blocking his view. "One more thing," he said. "You ever heard of Victor Kane?" Her stomach dropped, but she kept her face blank. "The name sounds familiar. Isn't he some kind of businessman?" "Something like that. He went missing 3 nights ago, same night as the suspicious activity here. Interesting coincidence." "I wouldn't know anything about that." "Right." Cooper stepped back. "Good night, Miss Morrison. And remember, anything unusual, you call me." Claire closed the door, her hand trembling as she turned the lock. She stood there for a moment, forehead pressed against the wood, trying to slow her breathing. When she turned around, Victor was leaning against the wall, his face pale. The conversation had cost him energy he couldn't afford to spend. "He knows," Claire whispered. "He suspects. It's different." "Is it? Because it feels pretty damn similar from where I'm standing." She crossed the room, checking the window. The street below was empty. "You need to leave, tonight, before he comes back with that warrant." "I can't, not yet." "You can't?" Claire's voice rose, then dropped when she remembered Nina sleeping down the hall. "You just heard him. He's coming back, and when he does, I'll go to jail, right alongside you for harboring a fugitive." "I know what I'm asking." Victor moved toward her, each step careful. "But I need 2 more days, 3 at most. The wounds aren't stable enough. If I move now, the abdominal injury could rupture. I could bleed out before reaching safety. That's not my problem." "Isn't it? You saved my life. You going to let me die now?" Claire wanted to scream. Instead, she paced, 3 steps one way, 3 steps back. Her entire apartment could be crossed in 10 steps. She'd never felt more trapped. "Tell me the truth," she said finally. "All of it. Who you really are, what you really do, why someone tried to kill you, and who that little girl is." Victor was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded and moved back to the couch, lowering himself down slowly. "My name is Victor Kane. I'm 35 years old. I run the largest organized crime operation in this city. I took over the family business when I was 25, after my father was killed by a rival family." The words hung in the air between them. "I've done things I'm not proud of," he continued. "Hurt people, destroyed lives. I won't pretend otherwise. But I've also tried to keep some code. No drugs in schools, no human trafficking, no targeting civilians. How noble, Claire's voice dripped sarcasm. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm giving you facts. He pulled the photo of Lily from his pocket. It had survived everything. This is Lily. She's 7 years old, and she's my daughter. Claire sat down hard in the armchair. Your daughter? Her mother was an FBI agent named Rachel Bennett. She was undercover, embedded in my organization to gather evidence. We fell in love. Neither of us planned it, neither of us wanted it, but it happened anyway. He stared at the photo, his thumb tracing the edge. Rachel got pregnant. She wanted to leave the FBI, start over somewhere. But before she could, she discovered something. Someone high up in the FBI was working with the Kozlov Bratva, a Russian organization trying to move into the city. They were using FBI resources to eliminate competition. Jesus, Claire breathed. Rachel gathered evidence, files, recordings, proof of the conspiracy. But someone found out. 2 years ago, she was killed during what was officially reported as a botched operation. I know it was an assassination. And Lily? Rachel made me promise to protect her, to keep my identity secret, keep Lily away from my world. So officially, I'm just her guardian, her mother's friend who stepped up after she died. Lily doesn't know I'm her father. The pain in his voice was raw, real. Claire found herself believing him, despite every instinct screaming that she shouldn't. The assassination attempt, she said. The Kozlovs? Yes. I've been gathering additional evidence, building on what Rachel started. I was about to go public when they struck. They know I have the files, and they've discovered I have a daughter. They're looking for Lily. They're looking for both of us, and they won't stop until we're dead and that evidence is destroyed. Claire stood again, needing to move. This was insane. All of it. She should grab Nina and run, get as far from Victor Kane as possible. But she thought of that little girl in the photo, 7 years old, the same age Nina had been when her parents died. Where is she now? Claire asked. Safe house, protected by people I trust. But the Kozlovs have resources, money, connections. It's only a matter of time before they find her location. Can't you move her? Every time we move her, we risk exposure. The fewer people who know where she is, the better. A sound from the hallway made them both tense. Nina's door opened. Small footsteps padded toward them. Aunt Claire? Nina's voice was sleepy. I heard talking. Just checking on our guest, sweetie. Go back to bed. But Nina was already in the living room, rubbing her eyes. She looked at Victor. Are you okay? You look sad. Victor's expression shifted instantly. That same gentleness Claire had seen before. I'm all right, just missing someone. Who? My little girl. She's about your age. Where is she? Somewhere safe, but I can't see her right now. Nina climbed onto the couch next to him, her 8-year-old logic finding nothing wrong with comforting a stranger. When my mom and dad died, I was really sad, but Aunt Claire told me they're always with me, in here. She pressed her small hand against her chest. Maybe your little girl knows you're thinking about her. Victor's eyes glistened. He looked at Claire over Nina's head, and she saw him struggling with emotion. Thank you, he said softly to Nina. That helps. Claire gently guided Nina back to bed, tucking her in and kissing her forehead. When she returned to the living room, Victor was staring at the photo again. She has Rachel's smile, he said, and my stubborn streak, apparently. Her teachers say she argues about everything. Despite herself, Claire smiled. Sounds familiar. I'm trying to build something legitimate, real businesses, legal operations. I want to give Lily a normal life when this is over. But first, I have to make sure we both survive long enough for that to happen. The evidence Rachel gathered, do you still have it? Yes, encrypted files on a secure drive. But they're incomplete. Rachel died before she could finish. I've been trying to fill in the gaps for 2 years. And if you go public now, without the full picture, the corrupt officials can claim it's fabricated. They'll discredit it, bury it. I need everything before I make a move. Claire walked to the window again. Dawn was approaching, pink light creeping across the horizon. 2 days, she said finally. You have 2 days to recover enough to move. Then you leave, and I never see you again. Agreed. And if Detective Cooper comes back, I'll figure something out. I won't let you take the fall for helping me. She wanted to believe him, That was the dangerous part. The next day passed in tense silence. Claire called in sick again, another lie that sat heavy in her stomach. Nina went to school. Claire checked Victor's wounds, pleased, despite everything, that they were healing well. That evening, as she prepared dinner, her phone rang. Unknown number. Hello? Claire Morrison? A man's voice, deep and unfamiliar. Who is this? A friend of Michael Grant. I need to see him, tonight. Claire's blood ran cold. She looked at Victor. He was already moving toward her, ignoring the pain it caused. She put the phone on speaker. I'm afraid you have the wrong number, Claire said carefully. I don't think I do. Tell Victor that Thomas needs to see him. It's urgent. About the girl. The line went dead. Victor grabbed the phone from her hand, his face ashen. Thomas, my second in command, the only person who knows where Lily is. He found you. Which means, Victor's jaw clenched, someone else might too. A knock at the door interrupted them. 3 sharp raps. Claire looked through the peephole and her breath caught. A tall man stood there, blonde hair, gray eyes, expensive suit. He looked directly at the peephole as if he could see through it. Let me in, he said quietly, before someone sees me. Claire's hand moved instinctively toward the kitchen counter where Victor's gun still sat. Victor caught her wrist gently, shaking his head. It's all right, he said quietly. That's Thomas. Let him in. She opened the door. The man who entered moved with predatory grace, his gray eyes scanning the apartment in seconds. He was 38, maybe, tall and lean, with the kind of presence that made the room feel smaller. His gaze landed on Victor, and something in his expression shifted. Relief, quickly masked. You look like hell, Thomas said. I've been better. Victor gestured toward Claire. This is Claire Morrison. She saved my life. Claire, Thomas Wright, my oldest friend. Thomas turned his attention to her, and Claire felt weighed and measured in that single look. Thank you for helping him. I'm a nurse. It's what I do. She closed the door, locking it. You said something about a girl. Thomas's expression darkened. He pulled out a phone, tapped the screen, and held it up. Security camera footage showed a residential street, a black SUV parked outside a modest house, 3 men exiting the vehicle. This was taken 6 hours ago, 2 blocks from Lily's safe house. Victor's entire body went rigid. They found her. Not yet. We moved her as soon as we spotted the surveillance. But Victor, they're close. Too close. Thomas pocketed the phone. The Kozlov Bratva has put out a $2 million bounty for information leading to either of you. Every street informant, every corrupt cop, everyone with a debt to pay is looking. Where is she now? Secondary location, but it's not secure long term. We had to move fast, didn't have time to properly vet it. Thomas glanced at Claire, clearly uncomfortable discussing this in front of her. We need to talk, privately. She stays. She's earned that much. Thomas studied Victor for a moment, then nodded. The situation is worse than we thought. The Kozlovs aren't just looking for Lily as leverage. They know about the files Rachel gathered. How? We have a leak. Someone in the organization is feeding them information. Thomas's jaw tightened. I've been running counter-surveillance for 3 days. I'm clean, but someone close to you isn't. Victor closed his eyes briefly. Any suspects? 4 possibilities. I'm working to narrow it down. But until I do, we can't trust anyone else. How long can the secondary location hold? 48 hours? Maybe. After that, we need to move her again. Or, Thomas trailed off. Or what? Claire asked. Thomas looked at Victor, a silent question between them. Victor nodded. Or, we bring her in. Keep her close, where we can protect her directly. But that means exposing her to more danger, bringing her into the active conflict. She's 7 years old, Claire said. You can't do that to her. We don't have a choice. Victor's voice was rough. If they find her at the safe house, she's dead. At least if she's with us, we can fight back. Claire wanted to argue, but she understood the logic. It was the same impossible math she did in the emergency room. Save the patient in front of you, even if the treatment was painful. There's more, Thomas said. The Kozlovs have reached out. They want to negotiate. Negotiate what? Your life for the files. They deliver you to their bosses, you hand over everything Rachel gathered, and they leave Lily alone. Victor laughed, bitter and cold. And I'm supposed to believe they'll keep that promise? No, but it confirms they're desperate, which means the evidence is more damaging than we thought. Thomas pulled out a small USB drive. I brought copies of the files. Maybe fresh eyes will see something we missed. He handed it to Victor, who took it with his good hand. How bad are the wounds? Thomas asked, really looking at Victor for the first time. Healing. She's good at her job. Good enough to travel? Not yet. Another day, maybe 2. Thomas nodded. Then his phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, and his expression went cold. We have a problem. He turned the phone so they could see. A text message from an unknown number. Just 3 words, and a photo. We know where. The photo showed Claire's apartment building. Claire's stomach dropped. How did they? They've been watching the hospital. Thomas was already moving toward the window, careful to stay out of sight as he checked the street below. There's more, Thomas said, looking at his phone. They sent another message. They know about the girl who lives here. Nina. Claire's world narrowed to a single point. Where is she? Your niece? Thomas asked. Where is she right now? School. She has after-school program until 5. Claire grabbed her phone, checking the time. 4:37. I need to get her. Now. Wait. Victor stood, ignoring the pain it caused. If they're watching the building, they'll follow you straight to her. I don't care. I'm not leaving her exposed. Neither am I. Victor looked at Thomas. Can you? Get us transport? Something they won't recognize? I have a car 2 blocks over, registered to a shell company. Thomas was already texting. But Victor, you're in no condition. I don't care about my condition. We get the girl, we get Lily, and we disappear until I'm strong enough to end this. Claire was already grabbing her jacket, her car keys. Nina's school is 15 minutes away. After-school program ends at 5. If I'm not there by 5:15, they call me. Then we leave now. Victor moved toward the door. You can barely walk, Claire protested. I'll manage. Thomas stepped between them and the door. Listen to me, both of you. If we do this wrong, if they follow us, we lead them straight to both children. We need to be smart. He pulled out his phone, made a call. It's me. I need a pickup at Nina Morrison's school, Elementary, Jefferson Street. Clean driver, secure vehicle, 15 minutes. He paused, listening. No, take her to the River Street location. We'll meet you there. He ended the call. My people will get your niece. They'll think it's a normal pickup, parent running late, nothing suspicious. I don't know your people, Claire said. I'm not letting strangers take Nina. You don't have a choice. Look. Thomas held up his phone again. New message. This one showed a photo taken from across the street. Claire's building entrance. Timestamp from 10 minutes ago. They were already here. Victor moved to the window, careful to stay hidden. Black sedan, 2 men visible in the front seat, probably more nearby. They're waiting to see who comes out, Thomas said. The second you leave, they'll follow, and they'll know exactly where the girl is. Claire's hands shook. Every instinct screamed to run to Nina, to protect her. But Thomas was right. If she led them straight to her niece, how do I know your people won't hurt her? She whispered. Because Victor trusts them, and Victor would die before letting a child get hurt. Any child. Thomas's voice was certain. I have a daughter too. She's 12. I understand what you're feeling. Claire looked at Victor. He met her gaze steadily. I promise you, Victor said. My people will protect her like she's my own. We'll get her somewhere safe, and then we'll end this. It was the hardest decision Claire had ever made. Harder than anything in the emergency room. Harder than taking in Nina after Tyler died. Trusting a criminal and his associates with the most precious thing in her world. But she was out of options. Okay, she breathed. But if anything happens to her, it won't, Victor said. Thomas made another call, giving quiet instructions. When he hung up, he looked at his watch. They're moving now. Your niece will be secure in 20 minutes. And then what? Claire asked. Then we get Lily, and we go to ground, somewhere the Kozlovs can't reach. Thomas looked at Victor. I have a location. Remote, defensible. We can hold out there while we figure out our next move. The files, Victor said. We need to go through them, find what Rachel was missing. Later. First, we survive the next few hours. Thomas checked the window again. The sedan is still there. They're waiting for dark, probably. Easier to move then. A new text came through on Claire's phone. She looked at the screen, and her blood went cold. It was a photo. Nina's school. The playground visible in the background. The message below it read, "Pretty little girl. Red backpack. Blonde braids. Would be a shame if something happened to her." Claire's vision swam. She grabbed the counter to steady herself. Victor took the phone from her hand, his expression going deadly cold. "Thomas, now. Get her now." Thomas was already dialing. "It's me. They're at the school. Move immediately. I don't care who sees, just get the girl and go." The next 10 minutes were the longest of Claire's life. She stood frozen in her apartment, watching the clock tick forward while her heart hammered against her ribs. Finally, Thomas's phone rang. He answered, listened, then nodded. "She's secure. They're en route to the safe location." Claire's legs gave out. She sat down hard on the couch. "Now what?" she managed. "Now," Victor said, "we'd disappear too, before they realize their leverage just vanished." Thomas moved to the door. "I'll bring the car around to the back entrance, service exit, less visible. Be ready in 5 minutes." "Wait," Claire said. "My things, Nina's things." "No time," Thomas said. "We go with what we have." "Her medication, she has asthma. I need to grab her inhaler." Thomas paused at the door. 30 seconds. Get what's critical, nothing else." Claire ran to Nina's room, grabbing the inhaler from the bedside table and shoving it into her jacket pocket. She snatched a framed photo of Nina with her parents, then stopped. If she was doing this, really doing this, she needed to be smart. She grabbed her emergency medical bag from the closet, the one she kept stocked for disasters. Supplies, medications, everything she might need if hospitals weren't an option, which they weren't anymore. Back in the living room, Victor had retrieved his gun and was checking the magazine with practiced efficiency despite his injuries. The casual competence was terrifying and somehow reassuring at the same time. "Ready?" Thomas asked. Claire nodded, though nothing about this felt ready. They took the service stairs down, Victor moving slower than he tried the hide. Each step made him wince, but he kept pace. Thomas led, gun drawn but concealed under his jacket. The back entrance opened onto a narrow alley. A dark blue sedan waited, engine running. Thomas opened the back door, and Victor climbed in carefully. Claire slid in beside him. Thomas took the driver's seat. "Keep your heads down until we're clear." The car pulled out smoothly, turning away from the front of the building where the Kozlov surveillance team waited. Claire risked a glance back as they turned the corner. The black sedan was still there, its occupants unaware their targets had just slipped away. They drove in silence for 20 minutes, taking a winding route through the city. Thomas checked his mirrors constantly, doubling back twice to ensure they weren't followed. Finally, he pulled into an underground parking garage. "We switch cars here. 2 more transfers before we reach the location." The process was repeated twice more. Different vehicles, different drivers waiting at predetermined locations. Thomas's organization was efficient, Claire had to admit. Every movement planned, every contingency covered. The final car took them out of the city entirely, heading north into hills that gradually became mountains. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and red. "Where are we going?" Claire asked. "Safe house in the mountains," Thomas replied. 40 minutes out, no cell signal, no internet, completely off-grid. "And Nina?" "Different location, closer to the city but equally secure. We keep them separated until we know it's safe to bring them together." It made sense tactically. Claire hated it anyway. Victor shifted beside her, his breathing slightly labored. She put a hand on his arm. "Your wounds?" "Fine." "You're a terrible liar for a crime boss." She unlipped her medical bag, pulling out a penlight. In the dim light of the moving car, she examined what she could see. The bandages on his shoulder showed some seepage, but nothing alarming. The abdominal wound was harder to assess without proper light. "We need to change these bandages when we arrive," she said, "and I want to monitor for infection." "Yes, doctor." "Nurse, and don't be cute. You're still recovering from being shot twice." Thomas's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, his jaw tightening. "Lily's secure. They moved her an hour ago. She's asking for you." Victor's expression cracked, just for a moment, pain that had nothing to do with bullet wounds. "Tell them I'll be there soon." "Victor," Thomas's voice was careful. "The leak. Until we identify who it is, we can't risk bringing you and Lily to the same location. If someone's tracking you... I know. Victor looked out the window at the darkening landscape. I know. They arrived at the safe house as full darkness fell. It was a cabin, rustic but well-maintained, tucked into a clearing surrounded by dense forest. Solar panels on the roof, generator humming quietly around back. Isolated, but prepared. 2 men stood guard outside. They nodded to Thomas as the car pulled up. Inside, the cabin was sparse but functional. 1 main room with a kitchen area, 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom. A laptop sat on the table, along with several phones and what looked like surveillance equipment. We have satellite internet, Thomas explained, encrypted, untraceable, and these phones are clean, purchased with cash, registered to fake identities. He handed one to Claire. Your niece's location has one too. You can call her, but keep it brief. Every transmission is a potential security risk. Claire took the phone with shaking hands. She dialed the number Thomas gave her. It rang twice. Then Nina's voice, small and scared. Aunt Claire? Hey, sweetie, I'm here. Are you okay? I don't understand what's happening. These people came to school and said you sent them, but I don't know them, and I'm scared. Claire's heart broke. I know, I'm so sorry, but those people are keeping you safe. There are some bad people looking for us, and we need to stay hidden for a little while. Are you in trouble? No, well, yes, but it's complicated. Can you be brave for me, just for a few days? Is the hurt man there, the one who was staying with us? Claire glanced at Victor, who was watching her with an expression she couldn't read. Yes, he's here. Tell him his little girl is here too, Lily. She's nice. We're playing cards. The words hit like a physical blow. Claire looked at Victor and saw his eyes close, pain washing over his features. I'll tell him, Claire managed. Nina, I love you. So much. I'm going to see you very soon, okay? Okay, I love you too. The line went dead. Claire set the phone down carefully, afraid if she moved too fast she'd shatter. They're together, Nina and Lily. Victor's hands were fists at his sides. She's there. My daughter is right there. And I can't. I know. Thomas was at the laptop, pulling up files. We need to focus. The Kozlovs will realize you've slipped away soon, if they haven't already. They'll increase pressure. We need to figure out our next move. Show me the files, Victor said, his voice tight with controlled emotion. Thomas plugged in the USB drive. Documents filled the screen. Financial records, wire transfers, email correspondence. Years of carefully gathered evidence. Rachel spent 18 months compiling this, Victor explained to Claire. Proof that FBI Assistant Director William Cross was taking payments from the Kozlov Bratva. In exchange, he fed them information about investigations, tipped them off to raids, eliminated their competition using federal resources. How is that possible? Claire asked. Wouldn't someone notice? Cross was careful. He used legitimate operations as cover, made it look like standard law enforcement, while actually clearing the way for Kozlov expansion. Victor scrolled through documents. But Rachel found the pattern, the timing of raids that always seemed to miss their targets, the investigations that went nowhere, the evidence that mysteriously disappeared. So why not go public 2 years ago? Because Cross wasn't working alone. Thomas pointed to a series of highlighted names. Rachel identified at least 4 other people in the conspiracy, FBI agents, police officials, even a city councilman, but she never found proof connecting all of them. Without that, they could claim Cross was acting alone, sacrifice him, and protect the rest of the network. So what's missing? The money trail. How Cross distributed payments to his co-conspirators. Rachel knew there had to be a central account, a way to track where the Kozlov money went after Cross received it, but she died before finding it. Victor pulled up another file. I've been working on it for 2 years. I found pieces. A shell company here, a suspicious transfer there, but nothing concrete enough to prove the full scope. Claire studied the screen, her mind working. What about medical records? They both looked at her. You said one of the conspirators is a city councilman. Politicians have to disclose financial information, right? But they don't have to disclose medical expenses. Thomas leaned forward. Keep talking. If you wanted to hide payments, you could run them through medical billing. Fake procedures, inflated costs, insurance fraud. It would look legitimate on paper, and medical privacy laws would protect the details from scrutiny. Victor and Thomas exchanged glances. Cross's wife has cancer, Thomas said slowly. Has for 3 years. Expensive treatments, experimental procedures. And the councilman? Claire asked. Divorced, but his daughter has a chronic condition. She's in and out of hospitals constantly. Victor was already typing, pulling up new searches. If they're using medical expenses as cover for money laundering, we can track it through billing records, Thomas finished. Healthcare fraud leaves a paper trail. Insurance claims, hospital records, payment processing. But how do we access those records? Claire asked. Medical information is protected. Victor smiled, and there was nothing warm about it. I know people who can access anything. The question is whether we can trust them. The leak, Thomas said. Right. Someone in my organization is feeding information to the Kozlovs. Until we know who, we can't risk reaching out for help. They spent the next 3 hours going through files, building timelines, connecting dots. Claire's medical knowledge proved invaluable, spotting inconsistencies in billing records that Victor and Thomas would have missed. It was past midnight when Thomas's phone buzzed. He looked at the screen and went pale. We have a problem. He turned the phone around. Security footage showed the location where Nina and Lily were being kept. 3 vehicles approaching, moving fast. How long? Victor was already moving despite his injuries. They're 5 minutes out, maybe less. How did they find it? Claire's voice rose. You said it was secure. The leak. Victor grabbed his gun, checking it with swift efficiency. Tell them out, now. Use the secondary escape route. Don't engage unless necessary. Claire felt her world tilting. We need to go there. We need to help them. We're 40 minutes away, Thomas said. By the time we arrive, it'll be over. Then send more people. Send everyone. I have 4 men there, against what looks like a dozen Kozlov soldiers. If I pull resources from other locations, I expose those positions too. I don't care about your positions. Those are children. Victor grabbed her shoulders, forcing her to look at him. My people will protect them. They'll die before letting anything happen to those girls, but we need to trust them to do their jobs. How can you be so calm? That's your daughter. I'm not calm. His hands were shaking. I'm terrified, but panic won't help her. The next few minutes crawled by in agonizing slow motion. Thomas's phone rang constantly, updates coming in fragmented bursts. They've engaged, heavy fire. Girls are moving to the escape vehicle. 2 hostiles down, Johnson's hit. Then silence. 30 seconds that lasted an eternity. Finally, Thomas's phone rang again. He answered, listened, and his shoulders sagged with relief. They're clear. Girls are secure. 3 wounded, none critical. Claire's legs gave out. She collapsed onto the couch, shaking. Victor sat down beside her, his face gray with pain and exhaustion and relief. Where are they taking them? He asked Thomas. Final secure location, the one even I don't know. Thomas looked at them both. That's how we know it's safe. No one in the organization knows where it is, except the 2 men guarding it. If there's a leak, they can't compromise what they don't know. And how do we reach them when this is over? They'll reach us. In 72 hours, if they don't hear from me, they take the girls and disappear permanently. New identities, new lives. The weight of it settled over them. 72 hours to solve a conspiracy that had taken years to build. To find a leak in an organization of dozens. To stop people who had unlimited resources and no conscience. Then we have 3 days, Victor said. 3 days to end this. Claire woke to the sound of muffled voices. Sunlight streamed through unfamiliar windows. For a moment, she couldn't remember where she was. Then it all came rushing back. The cabin, the mountains, Nina in hiding with Victor's daughter. She sat up on the couch where she'd finally collapsed around 3 in the morning. Her neck ached from the awkward angle. Through the doorway, she could see Victor and Thomas at the kitchen table, heads bent over the laptop. Victor looked worse in daylight. The gray pallor of his skin, the careful way he held himself. He needed rest, proper medical care. Instead, he was working. Claire stood, joints protesting. She checked her watch. 7:43 in the morning. "You should be sleeping," she said, approaching the table. "Can't." Victor didn't look up from the screen. "We're running out of time." Thomas glanced at her. "There's coffee. It's terrible, but it's hot." She poured herself a cup, grateful despite the accuracy of his warning. The coffee tasted like burnt dirt. "What did I miss?" "We've been tracking medical billing records for everyone connected to Cross," Thomas explained, "looking for anomalies, procedures that don't match the patient's actual condition, costs that are inflated beyond reasonable margins." And Victor turned the laptop so she could see. Cross's wife had a procedure last year, experimental cancer treatment. The hospital billed insurance $400,000. "That's not unusual for experimental treatments," Claire said, "except the treatment doesn't exist." Victor pulled up another window. "I had someone check. The procedure code used in the billing doesn't match any approved cancer treatment. It's fake." Claire leaned closer, studying the documents. Her medical training kicked in, analyzing the information. "The facility that supposedly performed it, River Valley Medical Center, I've never heard of them." "Because they barely exist," Thomas said. "It's a small private facility that handles mostly cosmetic procedures and wellness treatments, nothing that would require oncology specialists." "So the billing is fraudulent," Claire said. "They created a fake procedure, billed insurance, and pocketed the money." "Not quite." Victor pulled up a bank record. "The insurance company paid, but the money didn't go to River Valley. It was transferred to a medical equipment supplier, then to a pharmaceutical company, then to 3 different shell corporations before disappearing into offshore accounts." "Money laundering," Claire breathed. "Sophisticated money laundering, using medical billing as cover because it's complex enough that most people don't question it, and protected enough that investigators can't easily access the records." Thomas pointed to another file. "We found similar patterns for the city councilman's daughter, procedures that don't match her actual medical history, costs that make no sense, all going through the same shell corporations." "How much money are we talking about?" "Over the last 3 years, at least $15 million, probably more if we could track all the transactions." Claire sat down hard. "That's enough to buy a lot of loyalty, and enough to kill to protect," Victor said grimly. "If this goes public, everyone involved goes to prison, not just Cross. The hospital administrators who processed the fake billings, the insurance adjusters who approved the claims, the bankers who moved the money. It's a massive conspiracy." "So we have them," Claire said. "We have proof." "We have pieces of proof," Thomas's voice was cautious. "Enough to trigger an investigation, probably, but good lawyers could argue coincidence, claim it's innocent billing errors. We need something that connects it all definitively, something that shows coordination, intention." "What about communication records?" Claire asked. "Emails, phone calls. If they were coordinating this, they had to communicate somehow." "Rachel tried that. They're too smart. Everything important happened face-to-face or through intermediaries." Victor rubbed his eyes, exhaustion showing. "We need the central account, the one place where all the money flows through. If we can prove that one account received payments from all these different sources and then distributed them to the conspirators, that's conspiracy. That's intent. How do we find it? That's what we've been trying to figure out for 6 hours." Claire studied the screen, her mind working through the problem. Medical billing requires coordination. You have the provider who performs the service, the billing company that processes the claim, and the insurance company that pays. 3 separate entities that all have to agree on what's being billed. Right. So if the provider and the billing company are in on it, the insurance company is the weak point. They're paying out millions on fraudulent claims. Someone there has to notice. Unless someone at the insurance company is also being paid to look the other way, or to actively facilitate it. Victor's fingers flew over the keyboard. "What's the insurance company used in all these claims?" "Commonwealth Health Assurance," Thomas read off the screen. Victor pulled up corporate records. "Mid-sized company, been around for 15 years. Nothing remarkable. CEO is..." He stopped, his eyes widening. "Peter Yates." "Who's that?" Claire asked. "Cross's college roommate. They've been friends for 30 years. Victor was already digging deeper. "Yates took over Commonwealth 8 years ago, right around the time the Kozlovs started expanding into the city." "That's the connection," Thomas said. "Yates approves the fraudulent claims, the money gets laundered through his company, and he takes a cut before passing it on." We need his financial records, Claire said. Personal accounts, not just corporate. That's trickier. Victor sat back, wincing at the movement. Corporate records are semi-public. Personal banking information is locked down tight. Can your people access it? Yes, but that brings us back to the leak. The second I reach out to my hacking specialists, if one of them is compromised, the Kozlovs know exactly what we're looking for. They'll move to protect Yates, destroy evidence, maybe kill him to tie up loose ends. So we're stuck. Thomas's phone buzzed. He looked at it and his expression went dark. Not stuck, worse. He turned the phone around. A news alert. FBI Assistant Director Cross found dead in apparent suicide. Claire felt ice in her stomach. They killed him. They're cleaning house, Victor said, eliminating anyone who can testify against them. Which means Yates is next on their list, Thomas said, or he's already dead. Victor was already moving, despite his injuries. Thomas, we need eyes on Yates, now. Already on it, Thomas was typing rapidly on his phone. I have surveillance on his home and office. If the Kozlovs move on him, we'll know. We can't just watch, Claire said. If they kill him, we lose any chance of getting his records. What are you suggesting? Victor looked at her. We get to him first. We convince him to turn on the others before they kill him. He's part of the conspiracy. Why would he help us? Because he's about to die. Cross is dead. Yates has to know he's next. We offer him protection in exchange for testimony and access to his records. Thomas shook his head. That's a massive risk. If Yates is loyal to the Kozlovs, we've just exposed ourselves. He tells them we're coming, they set a trap. And if we do nothing, he dies, and we're back where we started, Claire countered. 3 days, remember? We don't have time for careful. Victor studied her, something like respect in his eyes. She's right. We need to move now, before the Kozlovs do. Victor, you can barely walk, Thomas said. You're in no condition for a tactical operation. Then it's good I won't be the one going in. Victor looked at Claire. You are. What? You're a nurse. You can walk up to Yates's door without triggering alarm. Tell him you're there about the fraudulent medical billing, that you have evidence that will either save him or destroy him, his choice. He'll listen because he'll be desperate. That's insane, Claire said. I'm not trained for this. You're exactly what we need. Someone outside the criminal world, someone credible, someone he might actually trust. And if the Kozlovs are already watching him, then Thomas and I will be watching you. You'll have an earpiece, a panic button. At the first sign of trouble, we extract you. Claire wanted to refuse. Every rational part of her brain screamed that this was suicide. But she thought of Nina, of Lily, 2 little girls whose lives depended on them stopping this conspiracy. Okay, she heard herself say, tell me what to do. The next 2 hours were a crash course in field operations. Thomas fitted her with a nearly invisible earpiece and a panic button, disguised of a button on her jacket. Victor coached her on what to say, how to read Yates's reactions, when to push and when to back off. Remember, Victor said, he's scared. Use that. Make him more afraid of the Kozlovs than he is of us. They drove toward the city in tense silence. Thomas had confirmed that Yates was at his home, a large house in an upscale suburb. No obvious surveillance, but that didn't mean it wasn't there. They parked 3 blocks away. Victor handed Claire a folder containing copies of the evidence they'd compiled. Show him this. Make it clear we have everything. His only choice is which side he wants to be on when this goes public. Claire took the folder with shaking hands. And if he refuses? Then we're out of options. Victor's expression was grim. But I don't think he will. Self-preservation is a powerful motivator. Claire walked the 3 blocks alone, every instinct screaming at her to run. The houses here were massive, set back from the street behind manicured lawns and privacy hedges. Old money, trying to look humble. Yates's house was a colonial-style mansion, white columns and black shutters. A luxury sedan sat in the circular driveway. Claire climbed the front steps and rang the doorbell. Nothing happened for a long moment. Then the door opened. Peter Yates was 50-something, soft around the middle, thinning hair carefully styled. He wore expensive casual clothes and an expression of mild annoyance. "Can I help you?" "Mr. Yates, my name is Claire Morrison. I need to talk to you about Commonwealth Health Assurance and some irregularities in your billing practices." His expression shifted. Annoyance became wariness. "I don't know what you're talking about." River Valley Medical Center, fraudulent cancer treatments, $15 million laundered through fake medical procedures. Claire held up the folder. "I have documentation of everything, and I know about your arrangement with William Cross." Yates went pale. "Who are you?" "Someone who can help you, or someone who can bury you. That's your choice." He looked past her, scanning the street, looking for threats. "Come inside, quickly." Claire stepped into a marble foyer that probably cost more than her entire apartment. Yates closed the door and locked it. "You're working with Victor Kane," he said, "not a question. I'm working for 2 little girls who deserve to live. You're going to help me make that happen. Cross is dead. Did you know that?" "I saw the news. Suicide, they're calling it." "It wasn't suicide." Yates's hands shook. "They killed him, and I'm next. They're tying up loose ends." "Then help us stop them. Give us access to your records. Testify about the money laundering. We can protect you." "Protect me?" Yates laughed, high and desperate. "You have no idea what you're dealing with. The Kozlov Bratva doesn't leave witnesses. Even if I wanted to help you, they'd kill me before I could testify. They're going to kill you anyway. At least this way, you take them down with you." Yates paced, agitated. "You don't understand. It's not just the Kozlovs. There are people in the FBI, the police, the city government, all of them, bought and paid for, all of them with just as much to lose as me. Then give us proof. Help us expose all of them." He stopped pacing, looking at her, really looking. "Why are you doing this? You're a nurse. This isn't your fight." "It became my fight when they threatened my family." Something in her voice must have convinced him. Yates nodded slowly. "My home office. I keep backup records there. Everything Cross wanted hidden." He led her down a hallway lined with expensive art, but as they reached the office door, Claire heard it. A sound that didn't belong. Glass breaking. Yates froze. "They're here." In her ear, Thomas's voice crackled. "Claire, we have 3 vehicles approaching the house. Kozlov soldiers, get out now." But it was already too late. The front door exploded inward. Claire's training kicked in before conscious thought could catch up. She grabbed Yates's arm and pulled him into the office, slamming the door behind them. "Is there another way out?" she hissed. Yates was frozen, his face pale as death. "The window. It leads to the back garden." Heavy footsteps thundered through the house, men shouting in Russian. Claire didn't need to understand the language to know they were hunting. She ran to the window, yanking it open. The drop was 8 feet to manicured grass below. Not ideal, but survivable. "Go," she told Yates. He didn't move, paralyzed by terror. The office door shuddered as something heavy slammed against it. Claire hit the panic button on her jacket. In her ear, Thomas's voice came through sharp and clear. "We're coming. 60 seconds. Get to the back of the property." 60 seconds might as well be an hour. The door splintered. Claire grabbed Yates and physically shoved him toward the window. Survival instinct finally overrode his fear. He climbed through awkwardly, hanging from the sill before dropping. Claire followed as the door burst open behind her. She hit the ground hard, rolling, her medical bag flying from her shoulder. Pain shot through her ankle, but she forced herself up, grabbing Yates. "Run!" They sprinted across the lawn toward a line of trees at the property's edge. Behind them, voices shouted. A gunshot cracked, impossibly loud. The bullet hit a tree trunk inches from Claire's head, bark exploding. She'd never been shot at before. The terror was overwhelming, paralyzing. But Nina's face flashed through her mind. Lily, 2 little girls who needed her to survive this. She ran faster. They crashed into the tree line as more shots rang out. The woods offered cover, but also confusion. Branches whipped Claire's face. Roots threatened to trip her. Yates gasped for breath beside her, out of shape and panicking. "Keep moving," she urged. In her ear, "Claire, head northwest, 30 seconds." She had no idea which direction was northwest. She just ran, pulling Yates with her. They burst out of the trees into a residential street. A car screeched to a halt beside them. Thomas at the wheel, passenger door flying open. "Get in." Claire shoved Yates into the back seat and dove in after him. Thomas accelerated before her door was fully closed. Behind them, 3 men emerged from the trees. More gunshots. The rear windows spiderwebbed but held. "Stay down," Thomas barked. Claire pressed Yates to the floor, covering him with her body. Her heart hammered so hard she thought it might break through her ribs. Thomas took corners at speeds that defied physics, the car sliding and recovering. Professional driving that spoke of training most people never received. Finally, after what felt like hours, but was probably minutes, he slowed. "We're clear. For now." Claire sat up slowly. Her hands were shaking. Her whole body was shaking. "Is Victor?" she started. "I'm here." Victor's voice came through her earpiece. "Different car. We split up to divide their attention. Thomas, the secondary location?" "Compromised. They knew exactly where to find Yates." Thomas's voice was tight with anger. "The leak isn't just feeding them information. They're coordinating with the Kozlov forces directly." In the back seat, Yates had curled into himself, making sounds that might have been crying or hyperventilating or both. Claire forced her own panic down. She was a trauma nurse. She knew how to function in crisis. "Mr. Yates," she said firmly, "I need you to breathe. In through your nose, out through your mouth. Focus on my voice." It took several minutes, but his breathing gradually steadied. "The records," Claire said. "You said you had backup records in your office. Are there other copies?" "Safe deposit," Yates managed. "Downtown, First National Bank." "We need those records," Victor's voice said through the earpiece. "Thomas, can we get to the bank?" "Not during business hours. Too exposed. We'd have to wait until tonight, break in." "We don't have time for waiting," Claire said. "Every hour we delay, more people die. More children are put at risk." "She's right," Victor said. "Thomas, where are you taking them?" "Industrial district. I know a warehouse. Not comfortable, but secure." The warehouse was exactly as advertised. Concrete floors, exposed pipes, and the lingering smell of motor oil. But it had heavy doors, no windows on the ground level, and multiple exits. Thomas parked inside, and they all climbed out. Victor arrived 5 minutes later in a different vehicle, moving carefully but under his own power. When his eyes met Claire's, something passed between them. Relief, understanding, recognition of how close she'd come to dying. "You did well," he said quietly. "I'm not trained for this. I got lucky." Luck is part of survival. They gathered around a makeshift table, actually a large wooden spool, probably used for industrial cable. Yates sat hunched over, still shaking. "Tell us everything," Victor said to him. "How the operation worked, who was involved, all of it." Yates looked up, his eyes red-rimmed. "I want immunity, full protection, new identity, everything." "You're not exactly in a position to negotiate," Thomas said. "Neither are you. Without my testimony and my records, you have circumstantial evidence at best. I'm the one who processed the payments. I'm the one who can trace every dollar. You need me." Victor studied him for a long moment. "Fine. You cooperate fully, and I'll make sure you're protected. You have my word." The word of a criminal? The word of a father trying to protect his daughter. That's worth more than any legal guarantee. Something in Victor's voice convinced Yates. He nodded slowly. "It started 8 years ago. Cross approached me. We'd been friends since college, and I was struggling. The insurance company was hemorrhaging money. I was going to lose everything. So Cross offered you a solution," Claire said. "He said he knew people who needed a way to move money, clean money, legitimate on paper. All I had to do was approve certain claims, process certain payments. I'd got a percentage, enough to save the company and then some." "How much?" $500,000 the first year, more after that. By year 3, I was clearing $2 million annually." Yates's voice was flat, confessional. "I told myself it was victimless, just money moving around on paper. I didn't think about where it came from or what it was funding." "And when you realized?" "By then, it was too late. I was complicit. If the operation went down, I went down with it." Yates met Victor's eyes. "You think you're different from me? You tell yourself you have a code, that you're protecting people, but we're both criminals. The only difference is I wore a suit to my crimes." Victor's jaw tightened, but he didn't argue. "Who else was involved?" Thomas asked. "We need names." "Cross was the coordinator. He received money from the Kozlovs and distributed it through my company. The recipients were all people in positions to help the Bratva. Police Captain Gerald Morrison." Claire's head snapped up. "Morrison? You know him?" Her mouth had gone dry. "That's my last name." Coincidence, probably. Morrison's common. But Claire was already pulling out her phone, hands shaking. She pulled up a photo. Her brother, Tyler. Young, smiling, wearing a police academy uniform. "Is this him?" She showed Yates the photo. No, Gerald Morrison is older, 50s, but Yates squinted at the photo. There's a resemblance. Could be related. Claire's world tilted. Her brother had been killed 3 years ago, shot in gang crossfire, or so she'd been told. But what if it wasn't crossfire? What if it was something else? Claire, Victor's voice cut through her spiraling thoughts. We don't know there's a connection. Tyler was investigating gang activity. He told me he'd found something big that would make his career. Claire's voice was shaking. 2 weeks later, he was dead. And we just accepted the official story, because why wouldn't we? If Gerald Morrison is corrupt and your brother found evidence of that, Thomas trailed off, the implication hanging heavy. Then he didn't die in crossfire, Claire finished. He was murdered by a cop, maybe by his own relative. The rage that filled her was white-hot and overwhelming. All this time, she'd blamed gangs, blamed the violence of the streets, never suspecting the corruption went deeper, that the people sworn to protect had killed her brother. I'm sorry, Yates said quietly, for whatever that's worth. It was worth nothing. But Claire forced herself to focus. She could grieve and rage later. Right now, Nina and Lily needed her functional. Who else? She asked, her voice ice. Yates listed 7 more names. Police officials, city administrators, even a judge. A web of corruption that had infected the entire system. The records in your safe deposit box, Victor said. They prove all of this? Bank transfers, payment schedules, communication logs, everything cross-kept in case he ever needed leverage over the others. He was smart enough to have insurance. Not smart enough to stop them from killing him, Thomas observed. That's because someone betrayed him, told the Kozlovs he was becoming a liability. Yates looked at Victor. And that same person is in your organization, feeding them information about your movements, your plans, everything. Do you know who? No, but I know the Kozlovs have someone high up in your structure, someone with access to your communications and movements. That's how they found Lily's safe house. That's how they knew I was meeting with you. Thomas and Victor exchanged dark looks. We need those records tonight, Victor said. Thomas, can you get us into the bank? Breaking into a downtown bank is not a simple smash and grab. Security systems, cameras, vault doors, we'd need specialized equipment, a team. Then we get a team, Claire interrupted. Use your people, the ones you trust. That's the problem. I don't know who I trust anymore. Then don't use your people, Claire said. Use me. They all stared at her. I have an account at First National, she continued. I can walk in during business hours tomorrow morning, act like I'm accessing my own box, get close to Yates's box, create a distraction, and grab his records. That's insane, Thomas said. Bank security will be all over you. Not if I'm just a nurse making a legitimate visit. I'm not on anyone's radar. The Kozlovs are looking for Victor and Yates, not me. After what happened today, they know you're involved, Victor said. They know someone helped Yates escape. They don't know who. I was just a face at a distance. Claire's mind was racing, planning. I can do this, but it has to be tomorrow, before they connect the dots. And when bank security catches you breaking into someone else's box, Thomas asked, then I improvise. I've gotten good at that lately. Victor studied her, and Claire met his gaze steadily. She'd come too far to back down now. Her brother's face burned in her mind. Nina and Lily, 2 innocents caught in a war they didn't understand. Okay, Victor said finally, we do it your way, but I'm coming with you. Victor, you can barely... I'm coming. Non-negotiable. If something goes wrong, you'll need backup who knows how to fight. You can't fight. You're still recovering from being shot. His smile was cold. Watch me. The morning arrived with gray skies that matched Claire's exhaustion. She'd slept maybe 2 hours, adrenaline and anxiety making rest impossible. Victor looked worse, dark circles under his eyes and a pallor that spoke of pain he refused to acknowledge. They rode to the bank in silence, Thomas driving with Yates hunched in the back seat. The plan was simple, which meant 1,000 things could go wrong. First National Bank occupied a corner downtown, all glass and steel, trying to look trustworthy. Morning traffic was building, people heading to work, living normal lives. Claire envied them. "Remember," Thomas said, as he pulled to the curb a block away, "you have 15 minutes from when you enter. After that, the risk increases exponentially. Get the box, get the documents, get out." Claire nodded, checking her appearance in the mirror. Professional clothes borrowed from a contact of Thomas's, hair pulled back, minimal makeup. She looked exactly what she was supposed to be, a nurse doing banking before her shift. Victor adjusted his jacket, concealing the gun Thomas had given him. "Stay close to me. If anything feels wrong, we abort." They walked the block together, just two people doing ordinary things. Victor's hand brushed hers once, a gesture that might have been accident or reassurance. The bank's lobby was marble and glass, designed to intimidate. A security guard stood near the entrance, bored and checking his phone. Two tellers worked behind a long counter. A manager sat at a desk in the corner. Claire approached the teller with a smile she didn't feel. "I need to access my safety deposit box." "Of course. ID, please." Claire handed over her driver's license, real and legitimate. The teller typed into her computer, nodded, and gestured toward a heavy door at the back. "Mr. Patterson will help you." Mr. Patterson was 60 and moved like he'd been doing this job for 40 years. He led Claire and Victor through the door into a room lined with small metal boxes. "Box number?" he asked. Claire gave her actual box number. She'd opened it 2 years ago, planning to store important documents she'd never gotten around to organizing. Now she was grateful for the impulse. Patterson unlocked her box and handed it to her. "Take your time. Let me know when you're finished." He left them alone. Victor immediately moved to the wall of boxes, scanning numbers. Yates said his was 347, upper section. "How do we get to it without keys?" "We don't. We take the entire box." Victor pulled out a small crowbar from inside his jacket. "This will be loud. You need to create a distraction." Claire's heart hammered. What kind of distraction? Something that gets Patterson and anyone else away from this room for 2 minutes. Before she could respond, Victor's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and his face went rigid. "We have a problem." He showed her the screen. A text from Thomas. "Kozlov team entering bank. 3 men, armed. Get out." "They followed us," breathed. Or they had the same idea we did. Victor was already moving, positioning himself by the door. Change of plans. "We get that box now and fight our way out. There are civilians out there." "I know." His jaw was set, the calculation visible in his eyes. "Stay behind me." He moved to box 347 and jammed the crowbar into the lock mechanism. The metal shrieked. An alarm immediately began wailing. Through the door, Claire heard shouting, then gunfire. The sound was deafening in the enclosed space. People screaming. More shots. Victor wrenched the box free and shoved it at Claire. "Hold this. Don't let go, no matter what." He moved to the door, gun drawn, checked the angle. 3 hostiles in the lobby. They're trying to secure the exits. Thomas is engaging from outside, but he's alone. "We're trapped." Never trapped, just tactically challenged. Victor's smile was grim. "There's a service exit through the vault. Patterson has the keys. We need to get to him. He's probably hiding or running. Then we find him fast." Victor opened the door slightly. More gunshots. Someone. Me crying. The security guard was on the ground, not moving. One of the Kozlov soldiers was using the teller counter as cover, firing toward the entrance where Thomas must be positioned. "When I move, you follow," Victor said, low and fast. "Understand?" Claire nodded, clutching the metal box like a lifeline. Victor moved. He crossed the open space with speed that seemed impossible for someone recovering from gunshot wounds. Training and adrenaline overriding pain. He fired twice, precise shots that made one of the Kozlov soldiers drop. Claire ran after him, her body low, terror making everything sharp and clear. They reached the manager's desk. Patterson was underneath it, pressed against the wall, whimpering. "Keys to the service exit," Victor demanded. "Now." Patterson's hands shook as he pulled a keyring from his pocket. Victor grabbed them and hauled the manager to his feet. "Show us, fast." They moved through a door marked "Employees Only" as more gunfire erupted behind them. A narrow hallway, industrial and utilitarian. Patterson led them to a heavy door at the end. Victor tried 3 keys before finding the right one. The door opened onto an alley. "Go," he told Patterson. "Run and don't look back." The manager didn't need to be told twice. Victor and Claire emerged into the alley as police sirens wailed in the distance. They ran toward the street where Thomas was supposed to be waiting. A black SUV screeched around the corner, blocking their path. 2 men jumped out, guns raised. Victor fired first, dropping one, but his gun clicked empty. He'd used his last round. The second man smiled, aiming at Victor's chest. Claire moved without thinking. She swung the metal deposit box with all her strength, connecting with the man's jaw. He staggered, his shot going wide. Victor closed the distance instantly, disarming him with moves too fast to follow. A strike to the throat, another to the temple. The man dropped. "Come on." Victor grabbed Claire's hand and they ran. Thomas's car appeared at the end of the alley, tires smoking. They dove into the back seat as bullets punched through the rear window. Thomas accelerated, throwing them against the seats. "Anyone hit?" "We're good," Victor managed. "You?" "Flesh wound. I'll live." Thomas took a corner hard enough to make the tires scream. "Did you get it?" Claire held up the battered deposit box. "Got it." They drove for 20 minutes, taking a route so convoluted Claire lost all sense of direction. Finally, Thomas pulled into an abandoned parking structure. "We switch cars here. They'll have the plate on this one by now." They transferred to a nondescript sedan, Victor moving slower now. The adrenaline was wearing off and pain was catching up. Claire saw blood seeping for his shirt. "You tore your stitches," she said. "Later. Now." Her voice left no room for argument. "Pull over, Thomas. I need to check his wounds." They stopped in a secluded area. Claire opened her medical bag, grateful she'd insisted on bringing it. Victor's shoulder wound had reopened, blood soaking through the bandage. The abdominal wound was holding, barely. She worked quickly, cleaning and redressing the injury. Victor watched her hands, not flinching even when she pressed hard to stop the bleeding. "You hit that guy with a safe deposit box?" he said quietly. "He was going to shoot you. Most people would have frozen. I'm not most people, not anymore." Claire secured the new bandage. "You need real medical attention, hospital attention. After we finish this." "Victor, after," he repeated firmly. Thomas had been examining the contents of the deposit box. Now he whistled low. "This is it. Everything. Bank records showing every payment, every recipient, dates, amounts, cross-documented everything." "Can we verify it's authentic?" Claire asked. "Won't matter if we're dead before we can deliver it." Thomas looked up. "This much evidence, the Kozlovs will throw everything they have at stopping us. We need to get it to someone who can protect it and act on it immediately." "Federal Agent Rebecca Stone," Victor said. "She was Rachel's partner. If anyone can be trusted, it's her." "You sure? The conspiracy reaches into the FBI. Rachel trusted her. That's enough for me." Thomas made a call, speaking in careful code. When he hung up, he looked grim. "Stone will meet us, but it has to be now, and it has to be at a location of her choosing. She's afraid of compromised FBI facilities." "Where?" "The old waterfront warehouses, District 9, 2 hours." "That's a trap waiting to happen," Claire said. "Isolated location, multiple entry points, no backup." "Which is exactly why Stone chose it," Victor said. "She's being careful too. If she brings FBI agents and they're compromised, we're dead. This way, it's just her. Unless the Kozlovs follow us there." "They will," Victor said with certainty. "They've been one step ahead this entire time. Someone in my organization is feeding them everything. They'll know about this meeting before we arrive. So what do we do?" Victor's smile was dangerous. "We plan for it." The next 90 minutes were spent preparing. Thomas acquired weapons and body armor from a contact. Victor worked his phone, making calls to people he trusted, or at least trusted more than others, creating contingencies, backup plans, layers of security. Claire checked her own phone. A message from the secure line. Nina and Lily were safe, still together, still hidden. But the clock was ticking. 72 hours was almost up. They drove to the waterfront as the sun began setting, painting the sky in shades of red that looked like blood. The warehouses were massive structures of rust and decay, abandoned when the shipping industry moved to newer facilities. Thomas parked 3 blocks away. They approached on foot, moving through shadows. Stone is inside warehouse 7, Thomas said, checking his phone. She's alone. She says she's alone, Victor corrected. Big difference. They entered through a side door, moving carefully. The warehouse was a cathedral of emptiness, ceiling lost in shadow, floor covered in debris. In the center, a single figure stood in a pool of light from broken skylights. Rebecca Stone was 40, sharp-eyed and carrying herself like someone who'd seen too much violence. Her hand rested on her holstered weapon as they approached. "Victor Kane," she said. "I wondered if we'd ever meet. Agent Stone, Rachel spoke highly of you." Pain flickered across Stone's face. "She was the best partner I ever had, and they killed her for trying to do the right thing." "We have evidence," Victor said. "Everything Rachel was gathering, plus more, enough to bring down the entire conspiracy." "Show me." Victor nodded to Claire, who stepped forward with the documents. Documents they'd photographed. Stone studied them, her expression growing darker with each page. "This is bigger than I thought," she said finally. "Cross wasn't just one corrupt official. This is systematic, institutional." "Can you protect this evidence?" Claire asked. "Can you make sure it sees a courtroom?" "I can try, but I'll need all of you to testify." "Victor, you understand that means turning yourself in, facing charges for your own crimes." "I know. I'm willing to make a deal. Testimony for reduced sentence and protection for my daughter." Stone nodded slowly. "I can work with that. And you two?" He looked at Thomas and Claire. "I'm with him," Thomas said simply. "I just want this to end. I want my niece safe. I want justice for my brother." "Your brother?" "Tyler Morrison, killed 3 years ago. I think Gerald Morrison had him murdered." Stone's expression shifted. Recognition. Tyler Morrison was investigating police corruption when he died. I remember the case. There were inconsistencies in the official report, but the investigation was shut down from above. By Gerald Morrison? Probably, with Cross's help. Stone's jaw tightened. "We'll make sure they all answer for it. I promise you that." A sound echoed through the warehouse, metal scraping against concrete. They all froze. "You brought company," Victor said quietly, not quite accusing. "I didn't, but I was afraid they'd follow me anyway." Stone drew her weapon. "How many?" "Enough to be a problem," Thomas said, his own gun out. Lights blazed suddenly from all directions, vehicles surrounding the warehouse, figures moving in the shadows. A voice boomed through a megaphone. "You're surrounded. Put down your weapons and come out. No one else has to die tonight." "That's Captain Morrison," Stone said grimly. Claire's blood went cold. The man who probably killed her brother was outside, playing cop, pretending justice. "We're trapped," Thomas said. "No." Victor was already moving, heading deeper into the warehouse. "There's always another way. Follow me." They ran through darkness lit only by flashlights and muzzle flashes. Kozlov's soldiers were breaching from multiple entry points. Stone returned fire, covering their retreat. Victor led them to a back section, where loading docks opened onto the water. A rusted ladder descended to the waterline. "Down," he ordered. "Thomas, you first. Get the boat ready." "What boat?" Claire asked. "The one I had positioned here 2 hours ago. I told you, contingencies." Thomas descended quickly. Stone followed, still firing back at pursuing soldiers. Victor led them to a back section, where loading docks opened onto the water. A rusted ladder descended to the waterline. "Down," he ordered. "Thomas, you first. Get the boat ready." "What boat?" Claire asked. "The one I had positioned here 2 hours ago. I told you, contingencies." Thomas descended quickly. Stone followed, still firing back at pursuing soldiers. Claire started down, the metal rungs slick and treacherous. Victor came last, his movements slower. The exertion and stress were taking their toll. Below, a small motorboat waited, Thomas already starting the engine. They piled in as bullets sparked off metal above them. The boat lurched forward, cutting through dark water. Behind them, the warehouse erupted in chaos. More gunfire, shouting, the wail of additional sirens. They'd escaped, barely. 20 minutes later, they pulled up to a different dock. Stone made calls, activating protocols that would protect the evidence and begin the process of arrests. Victor sat heavily, his hand pressed to his side. Fresh blood soaked through his shirt. "Hospital," Claire said firmly. "Now. No arguments." Agreed, Stone said. I'll take you in under protective custody, medical care, and then we start building cases. And the children? Claire asked. Nina and Lily? We'll bring them in once the immediate threats are neutralized. Give us 24 hours to round up the conspirators. Then they're safe. It took 3 days. 3 days of arrests, confessions, and the conspiracy unraveling. Captain Gerald Morrison was taken into custody, along with Peter Yates and 14 others. The Kozlov Bratva's local operations were dismantled. Leadership either arrested or fled. Victor underwent surgery for his reopened wounds, then recovered under guard in a hospital room. Claire was there when he woke up, Nina asleep in a chair beside her. "Hey," he said groggily. "Hey yourself. The doctors say you'll live, no thanks to your terrible self-care. Where's Lily? Agent Stone is bringing her now, along with someone who wants to meet you." The door opened. Stone entered, followed by a little girl with dark hair and Victor's stubborn chin. Lily stopped when she saw him, uncertain. Hi. Lily twisted her hands together. "They said you're really my dad?" "I am. I'm sorry I didn't tell you before. I was trying to keep you safe. Mom made you promise not to tell me. I found her letter. Agent Stone had it." Lily took a tentative step forward. "Are you really a bad guy?" "I've done bad things. I'm trying to be better. Mom said everyone makes mistakes. What matters is if you try to fix them." Another step. "Are you trying to fix yours?" "Every day." Lily climbed carefully onto the hospital bed, mindful of his injuries. "Agent Stone says you're going to jail for a while." "I am. 5 years, probably. But I'll be able to see you, have visits. And when I get out, I'll be different, better, the kind of father you deserve. 5 years is a long time. I know, but I'll wait forever if that's what it takes." Victor's voice cracked. "I love you, Lily. I've loved you since the day you were born. I'm sorry it took this long to tell you." Lily looked at him for a long moment. Then she hugged him, careful of his bandages. "I love you too, Daddy." Claire felt tears on her face. Nina had woken up and was watching with wide eyes. Stone stood by the door, giving them this moment. 6 months later, Claire stood outside a minimum security facility, Nina beside her. They'd made this trip every week since Victor's sentencing. Inside, Victor waited in the visitor's room. He looked healthier now, the gauntness replaced by strength. He was taking classes, working toward a legitimate business degree, planning for the life he'd have when he got out. Lily was already there, chattering about school. Victor listened with the focus he gave everything involving his daughter. "Aunt Claire," Lily waved when she saw them. The girls had become inseparable, sisters in everything but blood. Claire sat down across from Victor. "How are you?" "Better. The judge approved my parole hearing for next year. With good behavior and cooperation with ongoing investigations, Stone thinks I might get out in 3. That's good news." "It is." He looked at her, something complicated in his expression. "I've been thinking about what happens after, where I go, what I do. And Stone connected me with a program, former criminals helping at-risk youth, sharing our stories, trying to prevent them from making our mistakes. I think I could be good at that. I think you could too. There's something else." Victor's voice dropped. "I've been thinking about us, what we went through, what we built. I know it started with violence and fear, but somewhere along the way—" "I know," Claire said quietly. "I've been thinking about it too. I'm going to be here for at least 2 more years, maybe 3. That's a long time to wait for someone." "It is," Claire agreed. "But I'm not going anywhere. Nina loves Lily. I love what I've seen you become. So we'll wait. And when you get out, we'll figure out what comes next, together." Victor's smile was genuine, unguarded. The smile of a man who'd found something worth more than power or money, worth more than anything he'd had before. "Together," he agreed. Outside, as they walked to the car, Nina tugged Claire's sleeve. "Are we going to be a real family? You and me and Victor and Lily?" "Maybe," Claire said. "Would you like that?" "Yeah. Lily's like the sister I always wanted, and Victor tells really good bedtime stories." Claire laughed, the sound lighter than it had been in years. "He does, doesn't he?" She saved a dying Mafia boss. His secret turned her world upside down. But in the rubble and chaos, something new had grown, something worth fighting for. A family built not from blood, but from choice, from sacrifice and survival. and the stubborn insistence that even broken people could find their way to light. It wasn't a perfect ending, but it was real, and that made it beautiful.